الحمد لله رب العالمين وأصلي وأسلم على المبعوث رحمة للعالمين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه ومن اهتدى بهديه واستنى بسنته إلى يوم الدين أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته and welcome to this 24th session of fiqh that we have begun a couple of months ago with the grace of Allah Azza wa Jal. The last thing we talked about was the categories that are the beneficiaries of zakat. And this was mentioned in chapter 9, Surah At-Tawbah, verse number 60. And we spoke about 5 categories, and we stopped at the 6th category. And the 6th category is the debtors, those who are in debt, those who people want money from them. And these people either took the money or to help others. Those who took money to help others are usually mentioned in the books of fiqh to be those who reconcile between two fighting tribes or groups of people. So in order to reconcile between them, in what is broken, a person comes and says, listen, I will give you compensation of so and so, and goes to the other tribe and says, I'll do the same to you. Even if he's rich, just because he undertook the responsibility of trying to bring people, different tribes together, this is sufficient for him, inshallah, to accept from the zakat money. The other type is when he takes money for himself. And this is also depending on the reason. Is it a legitimate one or not? So a person who borrows money because he's poor, he has to pay the rent, he has to take his that sort. Such people are entitled to take from zakat money if they're unable to pay off their debts. But if the debt was not for such a legitimate reason, a person wanted to buy a new Cadillac, a Mercedes, a new Porsche, and he has to take money as a loan and pay installments. Then he comes to me and says, Sheikh, help me in paying off my zakat, my debt. No, this is not logical. This is not legitimate. So we have to send him away. Someone who is building a real estate compound, undertakes a loan, building a villa, a new villa, and he asks for help from zakat. No, you are a rich man, and this is not a loan that is taken out of necessity, but rather out of luxury. So this does not qualify for zakat, and Allah knows best. Number 7, fi sabilillah, which is in the cause of Allah Azza wa Jal. And scholars differed whether this category is specifically talking about assisting those who are fighting for the cause of Allah, or is it general? So building masjids is in the cause of Allah, building schools for tahfidh of the Quran, building publishing newspapers supporting Islamic satellite channels, Islamic centers. Opinion is that the cause of Allah, fi sabilillah, is limited to jihad, which is the fighting for the cause of Allah Azza wa Jal, and for those fighters who fight to uphold Islam to be the highest of all. So the Prophet was asked, alayhi salatu wasalam, a man fights out of bravery, out of nationalism, wars. So which one of them is in the cause of Allah Azza wa Jal? And the answer would be those who are doing it to make Allah's words the highest. 1 second, as I have to take my grandchildren out.
أشوف أحد يجي هنا عندي تصوير واحد يتحمل.
So we had to stop for this commercial break. When you have your grandchildren playing around, alhamdulillah. Okay, so the most authentic opinion is that fi sabilillah is dedicated to war in the cause of Allah Azza wa Jal, in supporting of the mujahideen, as this is what was mentioned in the Quran and the authentic Sunnah. The eighth category is Ibn Sabil, what some call the wayfarer, and he is a traveler who was cut off, and he might be rich, he might be wealthy, but at the moment, due to his travel, he was cut off. And we see this a lot in Mecca and Medina. People come for Hajj, cash they had on them, and they said, okay, all what we need is to just go back to our country. Help us in going back to our country. So if this person is honest and telling the truth, sending him back to his country is a legitimate cause, and it is permissible, insha'Allah Azza wa Jal. These are the 8 categories that your zakat money must be given to. Now, we don't have to include each one of them. So if I have $1,000 zakat, it's not a must that I give 120 here, 120 there, etc. for the 8 categories. No, I can give it to one portion of the 8, one of the 8 categories, and that would be sufficient, insha'Allah Azza wa Jal. Now, the following section, that money should not be given to. So, one of them is people who have money and those who are able to earn a living, which means that a lot of those whom we give our zakat to, our zakat is not accepted, because so many people come to me and say, Sheikh, my brother is in need and his salary is so little and he has like 6 children and he lives in rented home, so can I give him from zakat? It is not a yes or no answer. It is a description that you must give. So you tell him, is he classified as poor? And he goes to 1 month every year with the family to a Western country for the holidays, and he has some savings, he has some bonds. So, okay, where is the need then? Such a person is not in need. He's not poor. Definitely zakat is not permissible to be given to him. So, if a person is rich or earning, you cannot give him from zakat. Unless, for example, if he administrators of zakat, meaning that he is working on behalf of the government, collecting and distributing the zakat. We've mentioned this last time, and we said that this is permissible for him to take from zakat money, even if he's rich, because he's taking zakat money not due to the fact that he is in need, rather because he is one of the 8 categories which are those who deserve to receive zakat. Also the debtors, those who are in debt. So if a person reconciles between fighting factions and he spends money of his own, even if he's rich, he's entitled to be given zakat if he paid that money with the intention to fix between fighting factions and at the same time to be given from the zakat. So these are the exceptions. Now, the needy part is also a little bit tricky. So we mentioned last time, if a person was interested in getting married and he doesn't have enough to get him married, okay, he has a job, he has a house, but he doesn't have money to furnish a house. He doesn't have money to pay for the dowry or to throw a walima in normal forms that are accepted in the society and the community. Such a person, we tell him that you are entitled to take from zakat. Likewise, a person who is a student of knowledge, and we have a lot of those in the West and the East, everywhere, students of knowledge. So this person, it is easy for me to say to him, if you're unable to finance your trip to seek knowledge and get a degree and study with the shuyukh so that you can come back and convey the ilm, the knowledge that you have learned to the community and to the Muslims, if you're unable to provide for yourself, we can give you from zakat money. So this is also part of the sources we can give zakat to, and they would be an exemption from this, that is people with money and those able to earn. This person is able to earn, but in order to work and earn, he has to quit school. So no, we give him from zakat till he continues and gets his degree. The second type of people that we cannot give zakat to, those whom it is my obligation in Islam to provide for. So zakat is a duty in your wealth. But at the same time, I have another duty, and that is to provide for my parents and for my descendants, for my offspring, and for my wife. These are those whom I am ordered to care for and to provide for. Generally speaking, they are those whom I would inherit if they were to die. And due to the fact that I am obliged to provide for, and I will benefit from if they were to die by inheriting, Islam prohibits me from giving them from the zakat, because I would be hitting two birds with one stone, and this is something that one should not do. Should not do, not because it's preferable, no, this is haram. I cannot go to my father and tell him, listen, this is $1,000 for a couple of months from my zakat money to buy food and to buy groceries, etc. This is not permissible. It is my obligation to provide for my father, for my mother, for my wife, for my children. So I cannot skip zakat by giving them. When it comes for paying off their debts, so let's assume my father is in need of zakat. I cannot give him from zakat money. I have to provide for him the shelter, the food, the medical care, the whole 9 yards. But what if my father has a loan of $50,000 that he lost in a business, and all those who lent him want their money back, or they'll put him in jail? It is not part of my responsibility to provide for my father the payment of his loans. I'm obliged to provide for him food, shelter, and medical care, but not to pay off his debts. So scholars like Ibn Uthaymeen, may Allah have mercy on his soul, said that in this case, it is permissible for you to give him from zakat money, because paying off his debts are not an obligation. Also, to be excluded from this point is a woman giving her zakat to her husband. So a woman has an amount of zakat to be paid. Can she give it to her father or mother? No. Can she give it to her daughter or son? No. Can she give it to her husband? Yes, if he's poor or needy. But the other way around is not permissible. So if a husband has a poor wife, he cannot give her from zakat. He has to provide for her. But because it's not an obligation on a wife to provide for her husband, if he is in need or poor, she can give him from the zakat money. Number 3, it is prohibited to give zakat to non-Muslims. And we've mentioned this earlier, and we meet people of the book, Christians and Jews. So inform them that Allah has mandated that we take zakat from their rich to return it back to their poor. Their poor meaning the Muslims. So we cannot give zakat to non-Muslims in the 8 categories, with the exception of one, which is those whom their hearts are inclined to Islam. And we mentioned that last class, so I will not go through it again. Number 4, the Prophet's descendants, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the people that belong to the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam and descend from him, and we know that those descending from the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam are from his grandsons and grandchildren, to be precise. So these are his descendants. These are Ahlul Bayt. And it's an issue of dispute whether Banu Hashim and Banu Abdul Muttalib are together in this prohibition, or only Banu Hashim. And the most authentic opinion is that both Banu Hashim and Banu Abdul Muttalib are prohibited from taking zakat. And this is what the majority of scholars say, because it is backed by a hadith that this is the filth and the dirt of people, and it's not permissible for us, Ahlul Bayt, to consume it. But some scholars like Sheikh Hassan bin Taymiyyah and others said that this prohibition stands only when the people from the descendants are taken from the Muslim treasury, Baytul Mal. But if they're not, as the case is nowadays, if they're not given their rights financially, then they would probably starve to death. So due to the fact that no one is giving them their rights, scholars say that we should not let them suffer and need. We should give them from zakat money, because they were deprived from their rights initially. But taking zakat money from rich people of the descendants of the Prophet ﷺ to give to the poor is better than taking the zakat money from every average Muslim as a form of preserving their dignity, etc. And Allah knows best. Number 5 is the slaves freed by members of the Prophet's descendants والسلام, or household, and these are known as al-mawali because they follow in their lineage those whom have freed them. We don't have those, so we shouldn't pay much attention to it. And finally, the 6th category are the slaves. So if I see a slave who is in need, who's poor, I cannot give him from zakat money, because this zakat, if it reaches this slave's hand, initially it is his master's money. So as if I'm giving it to his master, who might and most likely would not be poor. So this is not permissible to give zakat to slaves, and this is not permissible. Okay, then we have a few issues here, but I think I will skip it, and we will stop at denying the zakat. And the reason is that we have many questions left over from last week and the week before, and I hope I read the questions correctly. I don't know if I mentioned that. Today is the 9th, yeah. Okay, doke. So we have a question from Masuma Maqsood, and she says, please answer my following questions regarding fasting. Recommended dua for breaking and keeping the fast. There is no such dua for keeping the fast. You say Bismillah, you eat your pre-dawn meal, you drink your water, you drink your milk, you do whatever you want before the adhan of Fajr. That's it. Once the adhan is called, you're fasting. As for breaking the fast, there is an authentic hadith where the Prophet ﷺ, after breaking his fast, would say, ذهب الظمأ وابتلت العروق وثبت الأجر إن شاء الله. Thirst is gone and the veins are nourished and the reward is fixed. And this is part of the dua you say after having your futur. There is normal dua, but before breaking your fast, there isn't anything prescribed. There is general dua to you, because the dua while breaking the fast is answered as in the authentic hadith. Can we break fast by following sunset timings in our WhatsApp app, or in that is in our weather app? One lives in America, or follow the local masjid timings. Allah Azza wa Jal in the Quran mentioned to us that whenever the sun sets, then we break our fast. And the Prophet said, ﷺ, if night time comes from here and daytime goes from there, then a fasting person has broken his fast. So what counts is sunset. Most likely, 99.99%, the weather apps give you the correct sunset where you are at, while the local masjid usually is it by 3 to 4 minutes, maybe a little bit less, a little bit more. Therefore, if you are confident that your weather app is in accordance to Muslim Pro, to Islamic Finder, etc., these apps that tell you what is al-Qura time for sunset, then there's no problem for you to break your fast accordingly. Number 3 from Ma'suma's questions: for night prayers like Ramadan, Qiyam al-Layl, can we open the Quran to recite from it during prayer, or recite the surah only we memorize? No, there's no problem at all. In night prayers, in voluntary prayers, there's no problem for you to hold the Quran and read from it in order to prolong your prayer. This is totally permissible and legitimate. Iman Agnon says, a woman 13 weeks pregnant, then had slight bleeding, can she pray? As long as she's pregnant, the bleeding that comes is neglected. She only has to clean herself before prayer and perform wudu. But as for the bleeding, it's neither menses. Told that there is no heartbeat and has to be aborted at 14 weeks. Is she in the state of istihada or nifas, or considered hayd? So when they told her that she is pregnant with a dead fetus, as long as she's classified as pregnant, whether dead or alive, then this is not menses and this is not postnatal bleeding. What about if she aborted the pregnancy and the fetus came out? What about the bleeding? What is it classified at? 14 weeks means that the child is 98 days old. And learn this rule: from day 1 till day 80, the pregnancy, the fetus, if it was aborted or miscarried, the bleeding is not postnatal bleeding. This is called damu fasad, which means that it is istihada. She can pray, fast, have intercourse with her husband, no problem. This is from day 1 of pregnancy till day 80. From day 120 onwards, if the pregnancy was aborted or miscarried, bleeding, because the soul has been breathed in the fetus when it's 120 days. Okay, what about the period from 80 days till 119? Scholars say we have to look at what was aborted. So we have to look at the fetus that comes out. If it has the features of a human being, such as a head, arms, bleeding would be postnatal bleeding. But if the fetus that came out is only chunks of flesh, no head, no arms, no features of a human being, in this case, the bleeding is istihada. She prays and fasts and is allowed to have by a woman or man at home. I think we've answered this before. Haslin says, if we are not memorized the dua which is recited in funeral prayer, can we hold the paper and recite it? The answer is yes. There's no problem in holding the paper with the dua and reading from it. She also says there is an app available on Chrome which allows to see what the other person deleted in our chat, can freeze or last seen, can hide online, and many more features which is not available in the official WhatsApp, which is available in Play Stores. Is it permissible to use this kind of apps? This seems to be more of spying, because if I have a conversation on my timeline or in my WhatsApp, and I delete it because I don't want people to see it, and you go out of your way to find ways in spying and finding out what I had deleted, what I had edited, that would be spying, and this is not permissible. Faiza says, can we recite dua of wudu as soon as we are done while still in the bathroom? This is best recited after you exit the bathroom. But to say it inside the bathroom, you're not allowed to utter it or move your lips with it. Isra says, can I make dua to be under the shade of Allah on the day of judgment if I don't fit the criteria of the 7 types, or I must fit one of those 7 types of people to get the shade? Well, there are 7 categories, 7 kind or type of people whom Allah would shade in his shade on the day of judgment. And the Prophet mentioned these 7 types of people. So can we ask Allah to keep us in his shade on the day of judgment? The answer is yes. Even if I don't fit the 7 criteria, the answer is yes. Because the Prophet did not limit those to be under Allah's shade or in Allah's shade in these 7 types. There are many more. And Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani had counted many more than 7 from authentic hadiths and prophetic traditions. So there's no problem for you to ask Allah Azza wa Jal for that, Ya Isra. Mona says, does the fatwa given in KSA about leasing car via bank is allowed Islamically? Is it allowed to buy a car under that fatwa? I don't know which fatwa you're talking about. Buying a car through leasing is an issue of dispute among scholars. I personally believe that the intention plays a great role in this issue. Now, if you go to any of them car agencies and you try to buy a car through installments, which by the way was the only way of buying cars 15 years ago, is 60,000 riyals, but we'll sell it to you over the period of 5 years for 75,000 riyals. So 3,000 riyals a year extra. Isn't this riba? No, this is not riba. This is selling and buying. So I can sell you my phone for $1,000, and someone else comes and I sell it to him for $800. You have no right complaining to me and say, why did you sell it to me for $1,000 and you gave that person only $800? It's none of your business. This is my phone. You don't want to buy it for $1,000, don't. Go somewhere else. So it's the same thing. If I, instead of selling it for $800, I sell it for $1,000 and dividing the amount on installments, this is permissible, providing that the end, not a penny less or more. and that the transaction is between the actual owner, not a third party who's financing it. So now this was how we used to buy cars. 15 years ago or so, someone evil came with this ingenious, devilish idea. Why? 15 years ago, showroom with the car in my name, so I can sell it immediately and benefit from the money, the cash money, while still paying in installments. So a lot of the companies complained about this and said that customers are abusing this, buying cars in installments, selling it the following day, and we find trouble collecting our money from them instead of selling them. So we lease them a car. It's still registered in our name as a company, as an owner. And at the end of the term, the 5 years, the 4 years, whatever we agree upon, we tell them that they have to pay a settlement amount, and then we can give them the car as a gift, as a something agreed upon, any reason. And it was like wildfire among car agencies. Everybody adopted it. Why? Because they get to make more money. When you buy a car that is leased to own, you will find that you're not actually buying a car. You're leasing a car with tough conditions and rules and regulations, so that the agency ensures that they're making much more secure money and depriving you from all of your rights. Therefore, I believe that such transactions are not halal, because your intention is to buy a car, not to lease. And their intention is to sell you a car and not to lease. And this is why the contract itself is being set up to fool you. So they say you pay 800 riyals a month for the car. That's fine, that's beautiful. You're renting. So I rent a car for 3 months, and then I said, okay, I'm leaving. I don't want your car anymore. I said, no, you can't do that. Why not? I was leasing. I said, yeah, but you've leased it for 5 years. So now instead of the 800 a month, after recalculating, you should pay us 7,000 or 10,000, because, and then you take the car if you were to continue. But because you disconnected, you have to pay this. If you were to continue the whole 5 years, we would have taken 800 riyals a month every single month. We would have done the average, but because you decided to leave, then we have to pay, you have to pay us so much money. So they're not leasing, actually. They're selling. They're compensating their loss when you left after 3 months by taking much more than any other car in the world would have. Not only that, you have to pay for full insurance. Okay, let us assume that after 4 years and 11 months of regular payment per month, and there's 1 month left to own the car, somebody comes and steals the car. He steals it, he takes it, and the cops are unable to find him or the car. So the insurance company says, we will compensate you, we'll give you a new car. You're happy, say, okay, wow, that's great. Only to find out that the agency is taking that car. Guys, I've been paying insurance, full insurance coverage. So yeah. And you're leasing. So now the lease is over because the car is lost and is stolen. We take the new car. You want to buy a new car or to lease a new car from us? Let's sign a new contract. What about the 4 years and 11 months that I had paid? It's gone down the drain. Apologies, but you've lost the car. So at the end of the day, it's damn if you do, damn if you don't. They are ripping you off left, right, and center. And this is why, regardless of the fatwa, if there is any fatwa, I believe that this is. Sheikh Rahman says, since it's an innovation to pray Eid Salah in the masjid, what would be the ruling in extreme situation? The whole area has been flooded except the masjid, or there's a bad storm. We've said that before, that whenever there is a need to pray in the masjid, this becomes permissible, as in the case of rain, as in the case of flooding, as in the case of natural disasters. You can't pray in the open, extreme wind, then yes, you can pray in the masjid without a problem, inshallah. Farhana says, please tell me the correct way to pray witr. Witr means in Arabic odd number. So 1 is witr, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11 is witr. The minimum of witr is 1, and the maximum is, the sky is the limit, in the sense that night prayer is to be prayed in 2, 2, 2, indefinitely. And remember, there is a big umbrella called night prayer. Underneath this umbrella, we have Taraweeh, which is a night prayer of Ramadan. We have Tahajjud, which is preceded by sleep usually. We have witr to conclude night prayer with. And the witr, the minimum is 1. And the maximum reported is 9. So the Prophet used to pray 1 rak'ah witr and offer salam. Sometimes he prayed 3 rak'ahs witr in a row, not sitting in the second rak'ah like Maghrib, rather praying first rak'ah, standing up, salam. He used to pray 5 rak'ahs in a row, sitting only on the 5th. He used to pray 7 rak'ahs witr in a row, sitting only on the 7th and offering salam. And he used to pray 9 rak'ah witr, sitting on the 8th, standing up, then sitting on the 9th and concluding it with salam. This is what was reported from our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to pray witr. So if you praying either way, 2 rak'ahs, 2 rak'ahs, 2 rak'ahs, night prayer, these 2 rak'ahs, like all voluntary prayers, like Fajr prayer, no difference. Once you want to conclude it, you offer 1 rak'ah of witr minimum, and in this rak'ah, you recite the Fatiha, the Surah, you make ruku', you make rising from the ruku', you make 2 sajdas, you sit for tashahhud, for the salutation, you offer salam. This is the way that witr is prayed. If you wish, you can add also qunut, which is after rising from the ruku', you raise your hands after saying Sami Allahu liman hamid Rabbana wa lakal hamd, and you say Allahumma hdina fi man hadayt wa afina fi man afayt, and the rest of the dua of Hassan ibn Ali, may Allah be pleased with them both. Iman says, a woman, okay, we've gone through this. What is this? It's repeated. Okay. Haslin, okay, we've gone through this as well. Available Chrome, and this was also finished. I think I copied and pasted the wrong questions twice. And flooded with your prayer. Okay. Roshana says, if I break my sunnah fast, would I have to repeat the same fast again? The answer is no. Someone invites him to lunch. He said, no, I'm fasting. He said, yeah, but we're dining at so-and-so restaurant. He said, wow, I have to go. So he breaks his fast. It's a voluntary fast. There's no strings attached, and he's not obliged to make up for that day which he has broken, and it is okay, inshallah. Shireen says, how far is a woman allowed to travel or move to one place or from one place to the other without a mahram? Shireen, the Prophet said, alayhi it is not permissible for a woman who believes in Allah on the Day of Judgment to travel without a mahram. The travel is meant here by leaving the borders of your hometown. So if you live in Cairo, you're entitled to travel east, west, north, south on the city limits of Cairo. You can travel alone without a mahram from West London to East London to south of London, north of London. But you can't go to Birmingham because that would be traveling. If you commute within the city, there's no issues in that, and you can do that without. If a woman takes contraceptive drugs intending to prolong her days of fasting in the month of Ramadan and eventually completes it, what is the ruling of Islam about it? If a woman takes contraceptives so that she skips her monthly cycle, this is totally permissible, providing it is medically safe. If you're exempted from fasting due to legit reasons, after Ramadan, can they feed 30 people on the same day, or should it be every consecutive day? No. Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma, the cousin of the Prophet ﷺ, at the end of his days, he became so fragile and could not fast. So he used to wait until Ramadan is over, then he prepares a huge amount of food and invites 30 poor people to feast and eat from it. That would be sufficient, inshallah. Sheikh Rahman, okay, your name, akhi, is, with all due respect, has to be changed. You can't call yourself Sheikh Rahman. Yani, Rahman is one of Allah Azza wa Jal's names that can't be shared by anyone. So you can't say Sheikh Rahman. You just have to say Abdul Rahman. Shaykhur Rahman, maybe, but it's not recommended even. Okay, he says some people, when they perform funeral prayers, they do with 2 salams rather than 1. Please shed some light on it. This is an issue of dispute among schools of thought, and we've said before that if you are praying behind a Hanafi school of thought and he does a salam to the left, this is permissible, and though it's against the sunnah, but there's no problem in it, inshallah, if one does it. Haslin says, if we fast Ayyamul Bid, the white days, the 13th, 14th, and the 15th of every lunar month, if we fast it on the rest of the months in Ramadan, can we make 2 intentions of Ayyamul Bid with fard? The answer is no, definitely not. What you're fasting is Mondays and Thursdays, the white days, alternate days. They're not compared with Ramadan. Ramadan is a fard. So you don't need to have such an intention, and Allah would reward you for fasting Ramadan and everything else. Haslin says, or this is Ma'suma. So Ma'suma says, tell me, I'm making my missed fast, so I have to feed poor. She missed the fast mainly due to illness during pregnancy and breastfeeding. Also prescribed dua for keeping and breaking the fast. We've gone through this. The answer is, Ma'suma, no. There is no feeding for you when you make up for missed days, whether it is for illnesses, or breastfeeding or pregnancy. You just make them days up, and that is it. Shamima says, my question is, if we had the intention of praying witr in the last part of the night after tahajjud, but if we slept off and woke up only at fajr, what do we have to do? Should we pray witr or fajr? No, you cannot pray witr after the adhan is being called. After the time of fajr is due, you cannot pray witr. What to do? You have to make them up during the daytime. So after sunrise by 10 minutes and until 10 minutes before the adhan of dhuhr, you can make up any missed night prayer rak'ahs there. So if you prayed your tahajjud and you had only one rak'ah left for witr and you overslept, when you wake up in the morning, you pray them two. If you're used to praying 11 rak'ah every night and you overslept or you were too tired or sick, so even numbers. And finally, I appeared in B exam in 2000, board exam maybe, in 2014. I appeared in 4 papers, and in 1 paper I was absent. When the result came out, they passed all my papers, and the absent paper also, I never cheated. Now I get a job with a degree. Is this job legal for me? The answer is yes, it's legal, inshallah. You didn't lie, you didn't cheat. Maybe you would have, it would have been much better if you've gone and talked to them about it, but due to the fact that it was one of 4 and it is a collective issue, it's not only 1 paper or 3 papers, or it's a whole process of learning. And if you fulfill the job description for that job that you have applied for, then it is okay, inshallah, and it's halal job for you. This is all the time we have until we meet on Thursday. I leave you fi amanillah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi.